Forum. The reason it's extraordinary is because it is the second one in our second calendar quarter. So it is a Q2 community forum in that sense, but it is unique because we recognize that there was a need to extend the knowledge of what is going on in community networking to our community sooner rather than later. I would like now to introduce the moderator. I think many of you know her. She is our Director for Development and working in our Global Engagement Group, Jane Coffin.
Thank you.
Stop my screen sharing and turn it over to Jane.
Thank you very much, Ted. Hello to all. First, thank you very much to everyone for joining us. This is an unprecedented event where we have so many people joining us from places like Nepal, Singapore, Costa Rica, Denmark, others. It's just very exciting. The point of this online forum, this community forum on community networking, is to bring you some of the key people who are bringing connectivity to those around the world that were not connected, and people who have been training, building networks, and doing amazing work. We're going to kick off first with our colleague Raj Singh, who's our Bureau Director for Asia-Pacific. So Raj, I'm going to turn it over to you to give everyone an idea of how we got started with some of the work that we've been doing and some of the colleagues that we have.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you may be. And thank you for joining us again, just echoing what the other two speakers have said so far. So in the interest of time, I won't dwell too much on this because I think what we'd rather do is learn from the various experts and community network operators that we have on the call today. But let me just give you a very quick background on what and how ISOC got involved in this. So our Wireless for Communities program was established in 2010. And basically what it was a thought I had that, how can we try and connect some of these rural areas in the Asian region? And in particular, I happened to be in India then, and that's when the idea came to my mind. Now, for my guinea pig, I convinced Osama Manzar, who's going to talk shortly today as well. And I must say that it took a bit of convincing to get him on board, but now that he is on board, I think he's one of our most vocal proponents of the Wireless for Communities project. And of course, it's not just that what we have done, it's what others have done around the world prior to us. But what I would call is the unique selling proposition, or the USP that we thought we had, was that we didn't want to just go in and do a network and leave. We wanted to train the local community to be able to operate and maintain the network. And I think that really has been one of the hallmarks of what we've been trying to do. So it's not just a bunch of experts coming in, doing stuff and leaving, but it's training the community up. It's for the community. The community keeps on building the system as we go on, and so on and so on. So we've had some remarkable progress. Some of you may be aware we've won 2 international awards for the Wireless for Communities project, one from the ITU and the Malaysian government, and the second one was from an organization called Public Affairs Asia. Since those early days and the early struggles we had, it's also been a very good learning experience for us, particularly in a country like India, where we've had a multitude of challenges, be it getting to a site, or looking at regulatory issues and spectrum issues and all sorts of things that came into play. And I think each country or each jurisdiction has its own little nuances that need to be looked at. I wouldn't say, we've got the Wireless for Communities project in 3 different countries now, India, Pakistan, and Nepal. And in each of those countries, there are differences. There are obviously similarities as well, but there are a lot of differences as well that come into play. And what we try and do is, of course, to find a local partner on the ground. So you'll hear from 2 of those partners here today, Osama from India and Mahabir from Nepal. They've done some great work, and although we've got between the 2 of them,
there's not at least, it can't be an abnormal,
something in the vicinity of 25 odd networks that we've been involved with. I'm also happy to say that these initiatives have also inspired many others. So I think in India, I think Osama can confirm that later, but there have been scores of other projects that have been inspired or been a follow-on from what we've done with W4C, so that they could go in and do their own thing. And that's really what I think our focus is. It's not us doing things, it's not our partners doing things, but it's trying to ensure that the internet gets to those rural areas, to those people in environments and communities where they may not have ready access to the internet, or may not be, or may not know what the opportunities there are once you are fully digitally online. Some of the other things that we've done with the project, we've tried to see how else we can bolt on things to it. And again, Osama and Mahabir will both speak about some of the things they have done on the ground. These are things like supporting micro enterprises. It's things like connecting health centers, connecting up schools. We've also helped provide some equipment to schools so that kids in schools can use the internet and learn more about it. There have been training programs for women, and particularly to set up their own micro enterprises, but as well to empower themselves and those around them. So what we've tried to do is to look at a holistic approach. We've built on this over the years, and it's taken us a number of years to get to where we are today. The success has been good, but of course there have also been challenges. And I think forums such as this, as well as the range of experts we have, and there's some other events that happen similarly around the world, which are physical events where people get to share knowledge and experiences. I think all that ultimately helps us build a better network and a better community of networks out there. So I think I'll stop there for now, and I'll hand back to Jane, and perhaps we'll have some time for a Q&A at the end, and I'd be happy to answer questions then. So thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Raj, and thank you for that excellent introduction. And for those that have just joined, this is our community forum on community networking. We're bringing people to you that are bringing connectivity to very difficult to reach places, urban, rural, and other, where they're connecting the unconnected. So thank you, Raj, for that introduction. And for anyone that's just joined, the mute button is in the lower left-hand corner, so mute yourself when you join. We're going to turn over now to Osama Manzar from the Digital Empowerment Foundation, who's one of our key partners, as Raj has said. Osama, we're going to turn over to you now.
Okay, great. Greetings, good morning, evening, not really good night, I would say. Otherwise, people will go to sleep. I am speaking from Singapore, but of course, all I'm going to talk is about the work that we are doing in India. Raj has given a very good introduction by saying that it was very hard for him to convince us to work on wireless for communities. So I won't elaborate on that. He also indirectly said that how unscientific I was, and I couldn't understand wireless, I couldn't understand technology, and so on and so forth. But I think what we realized that I understood community. Just to give you a little perspective. India, according to the World Bank report, 90% is offline. And you must be wondering, India is also the second or third highest networked country in the world in terms of people. So we contribute in every way possible to be among the ranks. And the work is very hard because 400 million people live in the poorest of the poor areas and remote areas. There is not too many regulation that is really supporting the downtrodden to be connected. And there are not too many telcos who are interested in connecting the last mile because it is very expensive. Having said that, we all know that we have certain technologies which is available, but we have not been able to use it properly. Like Raj said, from the last 10 years, since 2010, in about 6 years' time, we have really grown with the Wireless for Community program, starting from one place. And I would now at the end would say that there are 4 outcomes that we have been able to create. One is that there is a cadre of wireless engineers, and who may not be necessarily engineers by qualification, but engineers by training and by capacity, and so on and so forth. Many of them are 2-grade or 4-grade pass, and they are school dropouts, including women. I have few screens. I don't know if I'll be able to share with you. So that one big thing that we have been able to achieve. The second big thing that we have been able to achieve is connecting the tribal areas. which usually is the last social, entity that anybody look for. And Raj knows, and I'm really happy to show you the map of our country where W4C is present. If I can share the screen, that most of them are tribal areas. Can everybody see the screen?
We're close to seeing it.
Yep. Yeah, so we are in the last 6 years in 38 districts, 18 states out of 35 states of the country. That means half of the country we are present, and 146 locations we are literally present, and connecting the clusters of 4,235 entities. And these are the details of how long the kilometers we have connected, how far we have connected, how are these remote areas, which districts, and so on and so forth. So I think what started as a project has become a movement in India. Literally, if you really see the coverage. So in terms of a scale also, we have been able to prove a point. That's number 2. Number 3 is, now most of the partners who come to us to work in remote areas, NGOs, funders, grant-making organization, W4C has become a regular accepted ingredient of expense head in all the projects as far as the last mile connectivity is concerned. So by making for example, most of the rural areas project that we do, everybody would put a recurring expense for 2,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees or $50 for connectivity. Now they say that no, you put up a connectivity and take care of it yourself. So that's dedicated money most of the organization have started giving. And among them are Ford Foundation, among them are Tata Trust, among them are Capgemini, among them are Ericsson, among them are Qualcomm, among them are Microsoft. They all are the companies who are working with us for remote areas, rural development, including digital literacy. They all have dedicated money for last mile wireless connectivity. So that's the third most important thing that we have been able to figure out and able to achieve. The fourth most important thing that we are still advocating and fighting is that government should adopt it as a permanent, regular, acceptable methodology, technology, and a formula to connect the last mile, which is about to take place, which still hasn't taken place, but hopefully would take place. And then there are NGOs. That's the fifth thing that we have been able to achieve. The NGOs who work in remote areas, they have started coming to us and they are saying that, can you make connectivity of our campus? For example, famous Barefoot College campus is now fully wireless connected by us through our engineers. And we have also created a local engineers who are taking care of it. So this is the campus-wide network that we have been able to create, where solar engineers, community radio station, all of them are running on wireless network. And this is another screen that I would like to share with you about Barefoot engineers. Very proud of them. Minority girls, tribal girls are becoming wireless engineers to do the last mile connectivity, do the point-to-point geolocations mapping, and also in many cases putting towers. So that's very, very interesting. So I mean, any question I would be happy to, but these are the things that we wanted to share, is that a scale up has happened, large scale deployment has happened, cadre of engineers have been created, and large scale advocacy have been done to become acceptable to the not-for-profit organizations, and many such organizations who are adopting it as a methodology, as a technology to do the last mile connectivity and reliable connectivity. Those are some of the things. And lastly, and this would be a very happy news, that we have been able to create a social enterprise called Villages of India Private Networks Private Limited, which is now created as a separate organization to do the last mile connectivity and to the wireless technology connectivity. And just to work at a scale level, to take care of the regulatory issues, to take care of the large scale sustainability and so on and so forth, which DEF on its own alone would not have been good. So I would say something which started on a very, very skeptical note 6 years back has become a movement in India, and we are very glad that it has gone scale. And before I forget, I must thank Mahabir, who has been our mentor, who is across the border. He has stepped inside India and spent days and nights with us. He trained many of our engineers, and actually our team members, they really call him Guru. And just that Mahabir is too busy in his own country, otherwise they would like to have him every month in India. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Osama. And for those that are joining, we're going to have questions after our speakers are done. We've just heard from Osama Manzar, who's with the Digital Empowerment Foundation and a key partner of ours. Thank you so much, Osama. And your point about champions and the community building is so critical to the sustainability for connecting people in the unconnected areas. We very much appreciate the work we do with you. Now we're headed over to Mahabir Pun. Mahabir is from Nepal and is part of our ISOC Hall of Fame and an amazing person that we've learned so much from. Mahabir, we're turning over to you to hear your story.
Okay, first, my connection here is not that good. I am the place where I'm staying at now. Sometimes I find that, it is breaking up, So during this, session when Osama spoke, I had break for 2 times, so it might happen again. So just I will keep talking, and if you hear me, I hope you will be able to hear me.
Mahabir, so, thank you. Could you point the camera? There you go. We couldn't see you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Now let me start. I started. Nepal Wireless Networking Project. We informally named it as Nepal Wireless Networking Project in 2002. At that time, our goal was to just establish communication network between about 10 villages in the mountain where I was working as a volunteer or as a community developer. That time I did not have any idea how popular this kind of community network will be, and what kind of things we could do from this network. So step by step, what I found is after we built some network in 10 mountain villages, it became so popular. So I started getting requests from neighboring villages. Then we went to neighboring districts, and then another districts and another districts. So we kept expanding the network to the remote mountain villages, and then later we also started using the network for providing some e-health services in the remote clinic. So that is how it was started.
Hello all, we've lost Mahabir there for a second. We hope he'll come back to us. I think what we'll do at this point is skip. Mahabir, are you there? Okay, we're going to skip over to Roger now. Roger, if you're ready, we'll come back to Mahabir when connectivity is clicked back in. As many of you can see, the objective in bringing people to you who are trying to connect the unconnected, and as Osama has mentioned, and Mahabir, the last mile challenges, this is an example of why we're doing what we're doing. Roger, I think we're going to click over to you and we'll come back to Mahabir.
Okay, thank you very much. Ted, if you can share your screen with my slides, I will appreciate. Our story is is a case in Southeast Europe, in Catalonia, and it's spreading to many other regions in the Iberian Peninsula. Ted, can you share the screen with my slides, please?
So I'm
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm working on it right now.
All right, thank you very much.
Can you hear me? My connection was disconnected.
Hi, Mahabir. So I think we'll go back to you. So Ted, if you don't mind.
Okay. I'll try to sum up very quickly. Okay.
No, take your time, Mahabir.
Okay. So I have been working for the last 14 years in the mountain areas, and our focus is in remote areas where there are no internet service providers. Even like no like mobile services or no 2G or 3G services. That's what we are focusing on, and what we are doing right now is our main focus is in 3 areas. The first area is education. We are connecting the schools, community schools in the mountain villages, and helping the schools to run these e-learning programs.
Yeah. Again, thank you, Mahabir. We'll come back to you. I think, Roger, we're going to click back over to you. And again, for those of you that are joining us and have been with us, that's Mahabir Pun from Nepal. We're trying to bring him back in, but we'll click over to Roger now. And Ted, if you can share that screen. Roger works in Catalonia on a community commons-based project. It's a really fascinating group of people that are working to bring connectivity through that part of the world. Roger, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jane. So as I said, well, I haven't said this yet. We started in 2004. The problem was same as many other places. It was to solve a market failure. But if you don't mind, I will go to the other way around. So if you can go to next slide, please. For my presentation, I will start from the theoretical framework we are developing through practices, and then how GIFINET, the story of GIFINET, and finally with some conclusions. So next slide, please. In this slide, we see the supply chain models identified by the literature in the 3 layers before providing services to the users. The first layer is the passive infrastructure, second layer is the active infrastructure, and in the third layer, service providers deliver their services to the users through the 2 layers above. The literature has identified many models how to combine these layers. For instance, the model G, it's a fully integrated model where a single provider deploys the infrastructure, operates it, and delivers the service on top of that. All of the models up to G are identified in the literature, and we have added a new one here to explain what we are doing in GIFINET. And essentially, and this is the last column to the right, and essentially what we do is to do the first 2 layers in commons. So we say that we are building the infrastructure and are operating the infrastructure as a common pool resource. And on top of this common pool resource, the participants, some for profit, some other for non-profit, may deliver services to other participants. And this is essentially what we propose and what we have been experiencing since 2004. We started to wireless, but we are not stick to any technology. And we say, and now, for instance, we are replicating the model or adapting it to fiber. So to do this, and next slide, please. To do this, what are the principles? So we want sustainability by design. We are based on the Commons Collaborative Economy principles studied by the Nobel Prize Lynn Ostrom. We respect the free market rules, but we don't want, we do not permit speculative behaviors, and we are based on fair trade, which means that people has to be paid for their work, but a fair salary. What we propose is a win-win ecosystem that enables economies of scale, as we have seen through our experience. It enables to gather funds to run projects despite the big telcos. And it's to do all this, it must be accountable, transparent, and the information must be public. This is achieved by consensus written rules, and this goes to the right, what we call the self-governance stack. We are building a set of tools to put all this in practice, and here I would focus on the license. Everybody who joins the network, and currently it has over 30,000 nodes, so about 70,000 individuals participating in it, must accept the license. And based on this license, we are building all the rest of the tools. Next slide, please. Who we are. So we are essentially volunteers. Then there are also the governments participating, because they are responsible of regulating the public domains, and to do telecommunications, we must occupy public domains. And there are also other organizations delivering professional services. Next slide, please. So why do we identify these roles here? So because these people or these groups of participants have very specific roles and cannot be transferred. For instance, all the governance tasks must be run by non-profits or volunteers to make sure that they are not in conflict of interests. We cannot delegate the governance of a system to a company, which is rather common, by the way, in other models. So in the next slide, please, we want to present some of the examples of the tools we have developed here. For instance, we are presenting how we declare the expenses. The participants have, through the website, we use the GIFINET website massively. The participants declare their expenses. On the other hand, we monetize, us as the GIFINET Foundation, this non-profit organization taking care of the governance, is monitoring the usage of the resources, and then periodically we make settlements to compensate or the usage, to confront the usage versus the contribution. Those who have contributed as according to what they have used have nothing to compensate, but those who have used more or contributed more will receive or have to contribute during the settlement process. In the next slide, we present another example of the tools or the methodologies we are developing, and here refers to the cash flows. We have set a comprehensive system of tracking investments and making sure that the funds and investments that are put in the system are recovered through a billing system, to make sure that we are gathering again money or resources to keep it, to maintain it, and to extend it. And in the next slide, please, we present how we implement this through the telecom operators that are participating with us. We have implemented a system, an invoice system that there is a common template for all the ISPs, and here we distinguish or make. We have several lines here, and we split these two lines between the part which is aimed for keeping the system running, that is to clear the capex or to pay the OPEX, the operational and capital costs, and the part that goes to the local telecom who's delivering the services. here we have some examples. Currently, for the CapEx and the OpEx in Wi-Fi, there are 4 euros in each monthly bill. And for fiber, we are paying 17 euros for the CapEx to compensate the CapEx, and 6 euros per month for the fiber. So this is the general theoretical framework. And now if we go to next slide and we step into the evolution, how we started. Next slide, please. We started, as I said, as many other projects. We were trying to solve a market failure. Here, the Wi-Fi technology in the early 2000s helped a lot, because it was at that time was already affordable and accessible by standard citizens as we are. So we solved our personal needs, but then, and we realized that our neighbors had the same or similar needs. But here is something different from what was happening around us. Instead of setting a micro wireless ISP, we decided to do it in another way around. We decided to start a community project. So essentially, we taught our neighbors how we had solved our problems, and we team up to solve the community problems. In 2009, we set up a foundation to give legal coverage to what we were doing. This foundation is not a non-profit organization. It's not partisan. We say that we do politics, but we do not support any specific political party. And as I have already commented, now we have over 30,000 nodes, and we have integrated optical fiber. And next slide, please. Well, we received several awards as well. The last from the European Commission in 2015. And in this slide, we see what we are doing now. We started from the last mile, then we started building a territorial transportation network to reach the carrier house, which is in Barcelona, the capital of Catalonia. And in there, we are participating in the internet traffic. We are RIPE NCC members since a couple of years, and this is what we have achieved. What do we want, or what we are working now? We are working in several projects. One is the promotion of this concept, and this goes to next slide, please. The concept of this universal deployment format for optical fiber. We are trying to convince all the public administrations that whenever they do civil works, they deploy a fiber and they save some of the cables inside for the commons format, the model we are promoting. Next slide, please. And for the coming month, we have several projects, starting from one beyond ISOC Beyond the Net grant we have recently received to build or to develop training materials and give training courses to other parts of the world. We also want to formalize us as an IX because we think we are doing everything as an IX do, but in addition, we are distributed, and for this, we also account for the support of ISOC, and I'm finishing very fast. We are exploring new funding mechanisms, and any help is welcome. As a conclusion, we can say, and here I have double one slide, we can say that we have demonstrated that it's possible to build telecommunication infrastructure in commons and based on a collaborative economy. What we are proposing is disruptive, but at the same time is robust and healthy. We are all, I think we are the most transparent possible system. We are not discriminating according to a specific any pattern. And well, we have learned, and this is next slide, and I'm finishing with this one. We have learned several lessons through the experience that we are happy to share, and we expect that with this Beyond the Net grant we have received, and which lasts for 2 years, we will be able to write nice materials to share with all of you. Thank you very much.
Roger, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that commons-based approach to community networking. For those that are joining, you've reached the Internet Society's Community Forum on Community Networking. We've just heard from Roger Baig Vinas, who's in Barcelona. For those of you that think Spain is connected everywhere, that's not the case. And Roger's just given us an amazing description of some of the models they're using to connect the unconnected in villages and in communities in Spain. We're going to turn over now to Mike Jensen. But before we do that, just a reminder to everyone on the call, thank you first. We're recording. There will be Q&A after the speakers speak, and we have Mike Jensen, Peter Bloom, Jane Butler, Sebastian Beuttrich, and also we'll try Mahabir Pun again. But Mike Jensen is up next, and we plan to try and continue the conversation with all of you because we know that all of the questions that some of you may have may not get answered today. But while we have the fabulous speakers that we have with us, we'll try and get some of those questions in. But this is a mechanism for us to try and bring people to you who are connecting the unconnected around the world. And we'll be trying to continue that conversation with them and others so that we can bring more information to you. So Mike Jensen, who's in Costa Rica right now, is a great colleague and friend. He's with the APC. And Mike has built community networks, mesh networks specifically, and worked all over the world. Mike, let's see if we can bring you in.
Hi, everyone. Apologies, my 3G connection is a bit unstable, so I've muted video and I will keep it short, but please cut me off if you can't hear me properly. I think I would like to just take a little bit of an overview. Right, I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah, we've just muted that person. So for those of you joining, the mute button's in the lower left-hand corner. Our speakers are speaking, and we'd appreciate we'll try and put you on mute. But go ahead, Mike.
Thanks. I was just saying that I'd like to pass on some of the experience I've picked up over the last years working with many of the Association for Progressive Communication members and some of the other projects and groups that I've been consulting with, including ISOC. And thanks very much for bringing this session together, ISOC. I think it's a very valuable exercise in raising the awareness here, because I think that's probably the key issue, because I think it's not clear to everyone that mobile broadband isn't going to be the effective option for connecting the unconnected. In fact, it's not doing a good job of serving many of those that are connected in developing countries. Outside of the major urban areas, there's very often no 3G at all. The connection drops to 2.5 or edge type connection. And the costs of data traffic for the lower end of the market are really unaffordable. Costs of data packages are beyond most salaries, in fact, just for a limited amount of use. The current target is something like 5% of income should not be exceeded for accessing broadband, and that's certainly not the case at this point, with the majority of the people at the bottom end of the pyramid not being able to afford that sort of rate. So community networking alternatives have been discussed as a viable option, I think, for more than a decade now, but so far they still seem to be rather marginal to meeting the connectivity needs of those who are unconnected. And I think this is really because there's not sufficient awareness about the alternatives for community networking, that they are a viable option. And I think part of the problem here is that the global development community, the people providing funds and awareness raising and capacity building in developing countries, has largely focused on the opportunities for supporting access to mobile broadband. So we really need more activities like this one today that reach the development organizations specifically to make them aware that it's actually possible to service people with unlimited connectivity for much less than the mobile broadband options currently available. So then just to touch on three other aspects here that I think are priorities. The one is the access to spectrum, whether it's traditional Wi-Fi or some of the more innovative uses of spectrum such as TV white space. We still see that there's a lot of need for regulatory awareness raising to make sure that regulators know that mobile broadband isn't the only answer, and that opening up more spectrum to shared and unlicensed use isn't going to make the heavens fall in, and that there are a lot of opportunities here for sharing and using spectrum more efficiently than the current models that are usually adopted. Another area is equipment. This is still lacking in terms of really ease of use equipment, wireless routers and other types of networking equipment that can be really plug and played by people without much skills. We've just seen the launch of the Luma, for example, which tackles this in a sort of cloud-based solution, which isn't really appropriate for a developing country environment. But you can see that there is products now coming onto the market that can provide the kind of out-of-the-box mesh networking and ease of use functionality that we really require to bring this out to the next level of people that are not connected. And part of that issue of the equipment is building low-cost ways of powering the devices. Currently, the solar setup, for example, for a wireless router might cost 10 times as much as the wireless router itself. So we need to look at building in the delivery of power as part of the issue, because obviously in the developing country environment, many of the rural areas have no grid power at all. And then finally, as has been touched on already, capacity building for communities in rural areas is key. And it's great to hear about the ISOC Beyond the Net grant with Wi-Fi. This is exactly the sort of thing that we need more of to really build the skills of the local members in the community to be able to deploy these kinds of solutions. I think I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. We really appreciate you joining us and your connection held, which was excellent. And thank you for some of my favorite points about equipment. For those of you on the call, it can be incredibly difficult to get equipment into countries. So we often will speak with government officials about the importance of taxes and customs duties and bringing those down, whether it's for an internet exchange point or for a wireless community network. Mike also noted the point about development agencies. We need to see more flexible and faster project funding and more in the hands of community networks that aren't hampered by high costs of loans and perhaps just grants themselves. I think we're seeing a shift change thanks to the internet and more connectivity coming out to certain regions in the need for smaller, flexible spending projects where we can help the community networks. Thank you very much, Mike. We'll have Q&A after we're finished, and we have next up Peter Bloom from Rhizomatica. Peter's been doing work from Nigeria to Mexico. He's in Oaxaca right now. There's an amazing project that he helps work with there. They've done some great work with licensing and getting some spectrum, which is key. So Peter, we're going to click over to you, and I'll stop talking. Thank you very much.
All right, good morning. Good evening. Hello. Thank you, Jane, for the invitation. Hope everybody can hear me okay. And so I work with an organization called Rhizomatica that I helped to found in 2009 when I was working in Nigeria. We started as an attempt to use mobile mesh networking to connect groups of human rights defenders so they could avoid using traditional infrastructure that had its ups and downs, pros and cons. Then I found myself in Mexico in 2010 and have been working here ever since on helping communities build, manage their own infrastructure. We actually specifically work on cellular infrastructure. We find that some of the issues that have been brought up today I think are interesting, but we found that, and this is pretty much standard in most of the world, that there's quite a lot of cell phones out there. There's lots of people with cell phones, and that if we wanted to work on connectivity, that's where we should start. So that took us down a pretty long and interesting road. of trying to find equipment and software that work, writing our own software to do billing and so on. And obviously the access to spectrum is a huge piece of this. We're working in licensed spectrum in GSM. We use the 850 megahertz band. So like I said, we started in 2010 looking at this issue. In 2013, the first networks went up. Right now there's 16 communities that own and operate their own networks. There are approximately 3,000 users every single day on these networks, making calls, sending SMS, and we are at the point soon where we're going to start doing data over these networks. So actually, we're just talking about voice networks. Nevertheless, we require backhaul for the voice data. So we do work in conjunction with wireless ISPs here in Mexico. So we're in a state called Oaxaca, which is very mountainous, rural state of about 3.5 million people. And we're lucky in that there's a sort of a budding industry or budding sector of people doing wireless ISPs who we work in conjunction with. And we sort of focus on the, I guess, the last or the first mile portion of it, which is actually getting connectivity to the end users in a way that they manage and control. So we also have been able to get access to spectrum. Like I said, that's a challenge when working in pretty much anything that isn't Wi-Fi. And we have, when we're sort of transitioning between an experimental concession that we were given to use 4x4 megahertz of spectrum in 850 over to a permanent concession, which should last for about 15 years. Which will give us pretty much exclusive use of a piece of the 850 band to continue working on this. Like I said, we are interested in looking at how to do data over these networks. The equipment and the software that we use, we can do what I think Mike was referring to as 2.5 or 2.75G, which is something like Edge, which for many applications is actually sufficient. Obviously, it's not broad. In terms of broadband, what we are looking at is doing 4G. There's some new equipment coming out, and we're excited to look into that and also start fighting for spectrum for that. We are very committed to this idea of community self-management. We're very committed to figuring out ways to make that sustainable. So the way that the service works is every user pays the equivalent of about $2 to $3 a month for the service. And that's essentially what we call like a maintenance or a membership fee. So that helps you keep the network running amongst everybody. And like I said, the infrastructure itself is owned and controlled by the communities. And this basically allows there to be some sort of level of sustainability for the local network. We then are around, we support these networks. We're sort of like the technical support crew that makes sure that all the networks are running and make sure that everything is going smoothly. If there's any problems, people can contact us. So we maintain an office in Oaxaca. We started a not-for-profit organization here called Telecomunicaciones Indígenas Comunitarias, which is the organization that itself has the concession. Is actually allowed to operate as a telecommunications operator in Mexico, and that provides this technical support, helps do installations, helps train people locally so that they can manage the network. And then we also wrote a whole bunch of software that allows for the local administrators, which can pretty much be anybody, as long as they're able to read and write and navigate through a web page, allows them to administer the system locally. So they can sign up people for a new service, they can cancel people's service for whatever reason, do credit top-offs, monitor the network in a whole bunch of different ways, statistics and so on. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we're doing. It's been brought up before, this access to spectrum issue, and I think that's super important. I think that Wi-Fi obviously has been a huge boon to what we're doing as community networking people, but we really need to look at other types of spectrum and other ways that we're going to stay, I guess you could call it technologically relevant in the future, and really think about, what is the best way to do rural connectivity without making any assumptions about what the technology should or could be. Obviously, there's things coming out that work really well, but are generally not within our reach as community networks, something like 4G. which makes it actually very interesting for us, that something to look at, and how do we bring that into the community networking fold. We're very inspired by groups like EVNet and mesh networks around the world. And what we feel like we're adding into this conversation is this idea of, we should look at all technologies, should look at all different spectrum, and figure out ways that we can have access to these technologies and appropriate them and use them for what we need them for. So I guess I'll leave you with that thought, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much, Peter, and amazing work that you and the others are doing in Oaxaca, and fabulous that you were able to get spectrum from the government in Mexico, which is hard for community networks in some places. We'll probably come back to that at the end on the Q&A, particularly as we move into the IGF in December, and we're working with other groups like the Dynamic Coalition. Are there ways for community networks around the world to start thinking of generating enough interest in more countries allocating spectrum for community networks? It's something even in developed countries, Canada, the United States, that people are starting to look at, because they realize that there's so many people who aren't connected, even in the developed world, so to speak. And if you're joining us, we've got these amazing people on right now. We've just heard from Peter Bloom from Rhizomatica. They're bringing connectivity to unconnected in places that governments and some large companies don't go. That's been sort of a touch point for all our speakers, and it's an important one to focus on. We'll move, we believe Mahabir's back with us, but Mahabir will bring you on after Sebastian speaks. So we're going to click over to Jane Butler. Jane and Sebastian Beuttrich have worked on a book called Wireless Networking for the Developing World. Here it is. Some people call it the Green Book. They're volunteers that came together to put this manual together. That's also online. It's WNDW.net, so WNDW.net. We'll put that in the chat as well. And note, there it goes, right on the screen. Fabulous. So I'm going to click over to Jane Butler and Sebastian in a minute. But note, for those of you that are joining us or have joined us, we are recording. There is Q&A after everyone speaks, and everyone left are Jane Butler, Sebastian Beuttrich, and Mahabir Pun. We're preserving the chat. We're going to continue this conversation with you. We're also going to stand up a landing page, which will contain the names of the speakers, and we'll send that out through our different channels and to all of you, but give you a chance to also look at some of the different the sites for the different projects that are out there. So Jane, I'm going to stop speaking and turn over to you.
Thank you, Jane. It's Jane Butler here. Can you all hear me okay? Good. So my role is I'm a Vice Dean at University College London, based in London. And I'm going to talk to you today about the book and some of the deployment-led training opportunities and classes we've been running around the world. I'm delighted to be sharing this session with Sebastian Beuttrich, who works in the Technical University of Copenhagen. And he's going to talk about some of the case studies and the trainings he's done out in the field. I'm just going to start by giving you a brief introduction to the book and the resources available associated with the book. This book has been around for 3 versions, and we're about to edit the book again to bring it to the 4th version. The book is available, as you can see, online. It's also available as a print-on-demand book through Amazon CreateSpace, which I'll show you in a moment. On the website, WNDW.net, you will find the book and all of the translations. So I'll just click around the site to show you the resources available here, and then hand over to Sebastian. So here we have the main site with the case studies down below. And we have got case studies from around the world. So we have some from Brooklyn in New York. We have some from the Pacific Islands. We have some from Northern India in Dharamshala and University of Ghana. So very varied case studies. If you click up to look at the book, we actually on purpose made it available as a download, chapter by chapter. So you can download the whole book as a PDF. We've done it as high resolution, also low resolution, below 10 meg. And we've done it chapter by chapter as well, as you can see here on the screen. The book is meant to be a practical guide. It's not meant to be a theoretical book that sits on a shelf just giving you technical details. We very much wrote it as a practical guide, and our intention was that a student should be able to pick up this book and with very little knowledge, perhaps some basic engineering trainings at school level, could learn how to build a Wi-Fi network, either outdoors or indoors. So as you can see there, we start with the basic physics and the basic telecommunications. We talk about radio spectrum and licensing and regulation. We talk about antennas. We talk about networking. So we move into the higher layers. So we talk about the physical layers first and how that relates to spectrum and how it relates to radio physics. And then we talk about IP-based networking, and we include IPv6, obviously. We then talk about mesh networking and most importantly, security. The book also includes some chapters on how you plan for deployment, how you select your hardware, and how you do maintenance and troubleshooting of your network once it's up and running. We end by looking at the economic sustainability of networks in the field. So we hope that it gives students the chance to learn about all aspects of a network. And here are the translations. So it's in the main languages of English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French, but also in Arabic, Burmese, Indonesian, and a few other languages, Italian. So plenty of translations. It's available through CreateSpace, which is I'm showing it on the line on the screen here now. This is the self-publishing arm of Amazon. So you can find it on Amazon.com website. So if you want a printed copy, you can get it here. This book was funded by a private foundation in the US called networktheworld.org. And if you run training classes, that foundation will fund you having those books available to your students. On that note, I want to stop now because I want to hand over to Sebastian. Sebastian is one of the many trainers who undertake this work in the field. I'll just put up on the screen the training partners who get involved in doing deployment-led training, so you can see the extent of them there. Sebastian mainly works with Network Startup Resource Center based out of Oregon, who many of you I'm sure know. And Sebastian's going to take over and talk a little bit about the training he undertakes and some of the case studies. So over to you, Sebastian.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
We might leave these slides on because it's a nice entry. Yes, I do work for the Network Startup Resource Center, the NSRC. I also work for the IT University in Copenhagen, and that's where I'm connecting from right now. A few words about where this book came from. This goes back more than 10 years, actually, at a time when we had 18 years ago built the first wireless links from Denmark to Sweden. We had European and US free community networkers engaging in networks like Consume in London, Freifunk in Berlin, Copenhagen Wireless DK. The Freifunk network, as some of you might know, has links to Guifinet, that we heard about earlier. There was a lot of different organizations involved in trainings that led to this book. To name just a few, the APC, ICTP, ESLARED, IDRC. This led to a little summit that we called in 2004. We called it the Wireless for Development Summit. So this was 12 years ago, and actually at the time we invited Mahabir Pun and had a first video link from him to this event. At this event, the idea was born to collect these materials in a reader, in a book for others to share. We found that the principles of community networking that we in, say, Middle Western Europe found important were shared by many others, these principles being low-cost network, local ownership, freedom of networking, and freedom in particular meaning using the license-exempt frequencies, license-exempt bands, ISM nets. So this led to the first book in 2006, and it has since been used by the NSRC, the ICTP, many NOGs, ISOC trainings. Myself, I've mostly worked in Asia and Africa. Nepal Wireless has been one collaboration over the years. I've stopped counting countries, probably 20 plus countries I've personally been in. I would like to say a few words now that we're having this book and know it has been read and downloaded. Well, we know downloads are somewhere around 3 million. We do not know if everybody reads it, but I want to say a few words about things that might change over time or definitely have changed. As Roger said earlier, technologies change. We actually extend the idea of community networking to not only mean wireless community networking, but of course we'd be using fiber, of course we'd be using dynamic spectrum, TV white spaces as they might become available, and the status here is very different from country to country. As we extend our technological repertoire, we also have to be aware of the fact that networking has become something slightly different than what it was in the year 2000, maybe. We know that aspects of surveillance and ownership have become more important. And I feel we need to adjust our networking practices to these new facts too. What has remained the same is the importance of technical knowledge, local ownership, local control of what you're doing, and freedom in not only a technical way, not only meaning freedom of licenses, but freedom of control end of the day. So with these thoughts about what is different after 10, 15 years of doing this, yes, we're going into writing the 4th edition. We will hopefully improve the way in that freedom also means free access to sources and to jointly developing this with everybody who is interested in that. So this already means that please see our website that you still see on screen here as an invitation for collaboration. We will try to make case studies as openly available to everybody as we can, so that it becomes a truly a shared joint resource for everybody involved in community networking. I think that's all I have to say for now, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sebastian. There's just one more quick thing I wanted to mention, Jane, before I hand back to you, which I meant to mention before. If you look on the website and you click on Facebook, we actually run a group on Facebook called Wireless U. Here it is. Oh, let's get it back. Oh, okay, hold on. There we go. So this is where all of the students that we train sign up. It's a controlled group, and I keep it clean, so we don't have any bad stuff happening on it. And students post questions, and we share useful information with all of the students. So I coordinate the site. I also post interesting papers. There's one on low-RAR wireless technology, for example. So I try to keep the site and the content on it really just about community networks. We try not to put other information on there. And so it's a useful resource should you wish to either post questions or answer questions to others around wireless networking. I think that's all we had to say. Thanks, Sebastian, for your part in the talk. And we hand back now to Jane Coffin.
Thank you very much, Jane Butler and Sebastian Beuttrich, who just gave us a great chat about the Wireless Networking for the Developing World book and the spirit behind the community networking environment and the spirit with which they brought to bringing this book to fruition. And we thank you for the great information also that you'll be updating the book. And I think you've got a lot of people committed on this chat to helping you out. And also, of course, from our side of the Internet Society. We're going to try and bring Mahabir Pun back if we can for a few minutes. Mahabir, you're such an important aspect of this discussion. Can we try and bring you back for a few minutes and then we'll turn to Q&A?
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I have turned off my video because it says the network is slow. The reason is because I'm using, talking from one of my friend's room on my way, here. So I just got a chance to use his internet, and his internet in this room is very slow. So I turn off video. And so let me very quickly go. I mean, our network is community network. We have just named it Nepal Wireless Networking Project. It sounds like a very big project run by big organizations. We are not. Mostly, this is run and owned by the communities. My role is just to help the community to build the wireless network, to provide them training, and also to do this training program for and digital literacy program. Also, like I said, we are trying to use the network as much as possible for telemedicine program, because what we have found is that for the remote areas, mountainous areas where there are no doctors and no hospitals, this kind of network can be very useful, and it can help to save the lives of people whenever they are in emergency situations. That is why we are focusing on using the network for education and for for health and for digital literacy program. One of the reasons why we are using it for digital literacy program is because we have so many young people going to work abroad every day. According to the government statistics, every day 1,500 young people leave from the airport in Kathmandu to find jobs somewhere around the world. So that's why what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach these young people going to work abroad to learn at least how to use the computer, how to use Facebook, how to use Viber, and send messages, things like that. So that's why that's how we're doing this project. And this last year, when the earthquake struck Nepal, and many over 9,000 people got killed, and I work with the ISOC, with the Internet Society ISOC, to help connect some of these villages that were destroyed by the earthquake. We connected with the support from ISOC. We connected 16 villages and 3 health clinic, and we also built Wi-Fi hotspots in 8 villages. So we are trying to help some to these people in the villages hit by the earthquake. But unfortunately, most of these schools and health clinics and houses in these earthquake affected areas were destroyed, and and not many of these schools are especially fully operational right now. They are still building the classrooms, and they're building this the hospitals and houses. So even if we have brought the internet in that area, people have not been able to fully utilize it, and in this process we are also running the digital literacy program in the network. With Sebastian, and I have you, and I got a lot of help from Sebastian also during this time when I started building from the very beginning. I started building the network. Also, with some grant from ISOC, we are also trying to build a hybrid network using Wi-Fi technology and TV wide space technology. Because of the issue to get the license to use the TV wide space technology, we have not been able to complete the project on time, but we are working on it. I got 18 megahertz of band in TV wide space. Got permission from the government now, so I'm in the process of procuring the equipment and install the equipment in the remote areas and build this network. It's a hybrid network. For the point-to-point link, we are trying. We are going to use 5.7 megahertz. Equipment, and for the last mile connectivity, we are going to use TV wide space where the geographical geographical condition is difficult. We are going to use Wi-Fi for the last mile connectivity where it is easier to connect. Since this network is fully run by the communities, and it is the community members who are maintaining it, who are operating it. My main role is to provide them training, to help them to design the network and help them to build the network from the very beginning. Like Osama said, we train the local technician, because what I have found is to make this kind of network sustainable, the community must be involved in it. Without making the community involved in a project like this, this community network in the rural areas are not going to sustain. The main reason is, economically, we are not going to make any money, a big amount of money by building this kind of network, because the number of users in the rural areas are not many. We have very limited number of users, and we have to invest money to build the infrastructure. So that is why no commercial internet service provider are interested to go in the remote areas, and we have to find ways to do it by ourselves. In our case, the communities are also raising a lot of money, and they are investing it, and also whenever I get support from these people, individuals or organizations, I put that money to the communities and help the communities build the network. We are using, and that's how we have been able to make the wireless network in the remote areas of Nepal sustainable. I think I would like to finish this here, and I will have questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Mahabir. And we very much appreciate that you were able to join. And as Mahabir was saying, he had to click out of the video due to the fact that the connectivity wasn't stable. This happens in many places. We saw with Mike Jensen as well. We could hear a voice, not video. And this is why the work that all of you are doing is so important, to try and bring better connectivity to the countries that you're in. Mike is in Costa Rica. Osama works mostly in the Indian subcontinent. Mahabir's from Nepal. Roger's in Spain. Peter's in Oaxaca, Mexico, and Jane and Sebastian, who spoke, are doing great work with the book that they put together, The Wireless Networking for the Developing World. In the chat, you'll also see that we've got an online training program based on some of the fundamentals from the book. And Niall Harper from our team is key to that process, along with Terrell Cowieson, who from our Internet Leadership Program. We're going to take some Q&A now, and I'm going to invoke Ted to help us with some of the questions that had come up. So Ted, if you can help us with the questions, and we'll turn over to the Q&A. And if we can try and keep some of the answers to about less than a minute, if we can. So that we can fit in a great deal of the questions, because the Q&A is the great part here in addition. So Ted, over to you.
Yes, thanks a lot. I'll turn my video back on here. Thanks very much, Jane. And I'm going to just begin with John Laprise. Is John still with us? Because he asked some questions early on, some of the quantifying questions about how we're actually measuring our return on our impact, or the impact on the investment. So John, could you maybe extend that to all the projects you've seen?
Yeah, thank you, Ted. I hope everyone can hear me. My question is I come at this as a former scholar, and now I'm doing some work in the US. But in listening to all the presentations, which all sound fantastic, I'm just struck by how many people on the ground are actually being helped by this. I've had some sidebar conversations with some of the people who have spoken today, and we have numbers in the tens of thousands of people who are impacted. What does that actually mean? Are they direct end users? Are they sort of in the area where the rollout has occurred, and so they may have been affected? I'd like to see some better numbers about how the impacts of these projects. And what's more, from an ISOC perspective, if we can look at this over time longitudinally, we can look at how ISOC's efforts are working overtime, and hopefully we're seeing greater numbers of people being reached over time. Thank you.
So would anybody like to, any of our presenters like to take up that question? And if not, would the answer to that question, or to extend that comment, and by extension as well, if any of the members want to say anything who are on the line, maybe we can present. And I see lots of hands going up.
If we could start with Osama, perhaps. Osama, how many people are you reaching, do you think, through the work that you're doing?
Okay, so in terms of absolute number, I can't tell you the absolute number, but maybe anywhere around 50,000 plus people. But just to give few anecdotal examples to John, so that he can get an idea. So every location that we go, we have a community center. So we have our own center, which is totally hotspotted, totally Wi-Fi. So each year, each center serves more than 3,000 to 5,000 people who come to the center and go away for various informations, for accessing internet, for accessing entitlements, for browsing internet, for digital literacy, and so on and so forth. So that's one form of institutional establishment of a community resource center where people come and go. The second set of people who take connectivity from us, either to their household or as an institution. I mean, for example, in one of our locations, the toll plaza has got a connectivity from us. That means all the trucks and the buses and everything that from the highway that goes, they use our network, because they have to record each one of them, and then they have, by the end of the day, they have to transfer that entire file to the central location. In some of the location, people are using for video conferencing and learning purposes. And schools are involved, children are involved, and so on and so forth. In some places, they are doing video conferencing consultation with the doctors at two different distances. So it's a mix of community-based access to information, access to internet. At some places, it's institutionally subscribed. organizationally subscribed, and in some places kiosks have entrepreneurs have subscribed. In some places households have subscribed. And in some places like Barefoot College has a campus-wide residential campus of more than 300 people. So they all use it day in, day out. And beside that, that campus involves people coming in and going out in thousands over a period of year for various reasons. So these are the format and the various ways people are using, people are accessing. So institutionally, individually, household, community, and across health, education, access to information, access to entitlements, rights-based access, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that. From my perspective, and from a sort of a hard policy perspective, you have a large enough user base that we're probably always going to be able to find anecdotal evidence of success. But we need something more quantitative, and I invite the people who work on these projects to capture quantitative data, because when you're taking that to your to local funders, to local project managers, to local government, and even national government, in the policy sphere, they want some hard numbers. They don't just want the anecdotes. And if you're going to get success, more substantive success, I should say, or get better buy-in, then some numbers would be helpful to your endeavors.
Thank you for that, John. And we'll make a point of working with our counterparts to try. There are also some great case books that are out there on the various projects, and we can share those with you on the landing page that we're going to stand up, and we'll let you know. I think one thing that's critical is that not just the numbers, right? It's the fact that you're providing an amazing service to people that didn't have connectivity. And what Osama and Peter and others are seeing is that the businesses are being started, education is being provided, telemedicine is taking place to people who never had that opportunity. So I think we're going to click over to another question. Ted, what else do you have for us?
Well, the chat's been pretty alive with questions of all kinds. Trying to go back up to the top, I see that Nick Ashton Hart had a question about pricing and costs, and maybe he wants to have an opportunity to raise that discussion right now. Nick, are you there? You're on mute, Nick, if you're trying to speak.
Which is in the lower left-hand corner of your screen.
Right there.
And I think there's some great numbers from Peter and likely from Roger too on some of the facts with price.
Right. Well, maybe we can go ahead and I can just read his question if I can recover it there. His comment was really about what a more interesting opportunity would be to talk about costs at various levels, including tariffs that go from that are raised on the traffic. So does anybody have an opportunity of our speakers to maybe address the issues of costs in a way that hasn't been yet?
It is cost to, this is Mahabir. It is cost to build the wireless network. It is cost to operate.
So how to keep the costs down, I think, is also to the end user was one of the questions, but also addressing the issue of tariffs when you look at the traffic itself and where it's going and has to pass through.
So in our case, the main cost is to build the relay stations, because we have to build several relay stations on the top of the mountains to connect the villages. So we have, for example, we start from one relay station and build several relay stations, like 6, 7, or 8 more relay stations to connect to the last, the villages. And so the main cost is for the relay station for our case, and to build the relay station again, the big cost is for the power. We are using all over the relay station. We are using the solar. solar solar panels, solar backup power system, because these relay stations are up in the mountains, far from the the villages, far from the human settlement. So solar power and wireless equipment is the main cost. So the second cost is for the internet connectivity. In our case in Nepal, the internet, the price of the internet has come down, but it's still it is expensive. For example, for 1 Mbps of internet link in Nepal cost around $60 per Mbps, $60 to $70 per Mbps. So that is why it is not quite affordable for us. And also, I got a question from here that says how the share cost recover. What is that? Let me see. I think I got another question right now here from somebody. I lost it.
Perhaps it was a question from Nick, whom I asked earlier. It says, could you discuss how the shared cost recovery works to make the village connection sustainable over time?
Yes. So we have divided the network in subnets. For example, in one subnet there are like 10 or 15 or 20 villages. So those subnets should be maintained by the villagers, in the network, in the subnet. For example, there is a cost for the maintenance, cost for the technicians to maintain it. So that is why the cost is shared by the communities. And for internet bandwidth cost also shared by the communities. Maintenance and repairing, and if we have to replace the equipment, that cost is also shared by the communities in the subnetwork. So we have around 15 subnets in the network, and so different subnet run independently their network.
Mahabir, thank you for that. And perhaps we could ask Peter. Peter, how do you manage shared costs at the Rhizomatica network?
Sure. So, a normal cellular base station, if owned and operated by a large operator, costs them something like $100,000 to set up in a rural area. It costs us less than $10,000 to do the same thing. And when I say us, I'm actually talking about the communities. So this is an investment that the communities make and then recoup over time with the service charges that they make to users, which I said is about $3 a month. So like on one base station is just your transceiver, basically the thing that's pushing out signal and getting signal back from phones. You can, in the way that we do it, which is sort of unlimited use, you're looking at the base station as like a commons. You can fit about 500 people on a 2 transceiver base station without there being congestion. If you start tightening the administrative thing, so like limiting the amount of time people can talk, or limiting the amount of minutes, or charging people per minute and so on, you can fit, 1,000, 1,500 people on the same base station. So we generally look at a place and we try to average out costs at about 300 users per base station. And within about 2 years, they should have recouped their costs. Obviously, other part of the money that they're bringing in every month is paying for their ongoing costs, their internet access, light, and so on. And then whatever's left over, they can put towards paying back the cost of the base station. So we look at about 2 years as being the time to recoup the capital expenditures.
Thank you, Peter. And that was Peter from Rhizomatica, and before Mahabir with the Nepal Wireless Project. Roger, you have a cost modeling with the project you run with Wi-Fi.net. Can you explain that very briefly, what that is? And if you're looking for the mute button, it's in the lower left-hand corner. Maybe Roger's no longer with us. That's okay.
Roger did just post a question.
Okay.
comment. So essentially cost distribution and making sure that ISPs connect to the end user, who in the end are the primary source of the income.
Brilliant. And for those of you that are interested in that project, take a look at gwifi.net. There's an amazing amount of literature online and good information. And again, for those that joined late, we've recorded this session. We hang on one sec, Roger. There's Q&A as well, which we're going through now. We'll take one more question, I think. Yeah, Ted? Because I think we're almost at the end.
We're kind of at the end, but I note that there are still a number of participants. So certainly one more question is viable. So please. What I'll do is I'll say, is Carlos still on? Because Carlos brought up something interesting about the lack of sustainability of the community network project in Africa. And Carlos, I'd like it if you would just raise that question to the group and maybe comment on it and see if others want to as well. Carlos, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Yeah, no, I've been trying to work with community networks here, especially in South Africa, also in Namibia, in rural areas of this part of the world. And it's surprising how, for instance, in the Asian, in India, Nepal, all this area, in Latin America, with Altermundi, with all these other community networks, Rhizomatica, etc., there is a lot of community networks that are taking root. And they are taking root very quickly. And here, at least in South Africa, and with all the grassroots organizations that I'm working, we are realizing that it's taking more and more effort for communities to see that they could do this for themselves. So I don't know if it's a question of training only, or if it's a question of funds only, or what is the question. But I think it's interesting it would be interesting to analyze why that is the case. Why in the places where it's probably needed the most, there are so many instances of community-initiated community networks rather than externally initiated community networks. That's probably the question that I would like to throw. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And also Steve Sung in the chat agreed with you, and with respect to just trying to make the networks affordable, cost recovery, and sustainability. Roger, I think you're back. Could we just jump over to you very quickly for you to share with us the point you wanted to make?
First of all, we have a gain of scale, but we benefit of economy of scale, and we are contracting, for instance, carriers in the uplink connection to the wholesale carriers in terms of 10 gigabit connections. So probably this not apply to other places. But I think the idea applies almost everywhere. The idea is to gather demand to go for better prices, and not to stick to any technology or any solution. As soon as you can access to something cheaper, go for it. And what we do in Gifinet, this is externally, let's say, how we purchase services and products. Internally, how we distribute costs. So essentially, what we do is to charge everybody the same, as long as it makes sense, because in the end you also you always have the compromise to adapt to local needs. And here, for instance, we are talking about a developed region where more or less everybody can pay 30, 40 euros a month for a decent internet connection. But so we distribute the costs independently, and this is in contrast to the Nepal case, through all the Gifinet area so far. So it doesn't matter if you live in Barcelona, straight in the capital, or you live at the last stage of the network. We share costs all together to make sure that everybody has the same opportunities.
Thank you very much, Roger. I think we are closing in on the hour or the hour and a half that we had allocated. I think we can see from all of the interest and all of the amazing people that have also joined, like Steve Song and Carlos and others who have had a hand in community networking, that this is a topic that many people would like to hear more about. We are committed to try and bring you more discussions like this, perhaps at a regional level as well, in different languages. But what I would like to do now is to thank you for joining us, and particularly thank the speakers, Rajnesh Singh, Raj, from our Regional Bureau in Asia-Pacific, Osama Manzar from the Digital Empowerment Foundation and an amazing partner of many organizations, including the Internet Society, and someone who's worked very closely with the other speaker that came in from Nepal, which was amazing too, Mahabir Pun. Mahabir is with the Nepal Wireless Project. Roger, who just spoke, is with Wi-Fi.net, providing connectivity in Catalonia in Spain, and also using a model that's won awards by the European Commission, and other projects like Carlos's in South Africa are working closely with his. Mike Jensen from APC, and a colleague that's done mesh networking and work throughout the world. Peter Bloom from Rhizomatica, Jane Butler and Sebastian Beuttrich, who are key to the Wireless Networking for the Developing World book, but also in their own right, working with the Wireless U Facebook page, for those of you that would like to join. Jane pointed that out, and also the great training that goes on. A colleague, Niall Harper, has noted in the chat that there's a great deal of training that we also have online, and we can just refer you to our website at the Internet Society. But the key thing is to bring people like the speakers that we had today to you, and to thank you very much for joining us, but also thank them for all of the hard work that they do to connect the unconnected. And it is about even the smallest of villages getting connected. With that, I think we're going to close and just remind you that we did record, we've saved the chat. We'll put this up on a site, community networking site, and link back and forth to the various projects. And we just want to thank you very much for your time, your attention, and your participation.
I would just like to also invite you to continue this conversation in the open forum in Connect. There's a real opportunity for you to ask those questions, make those comments, and have that true dialogue back with each other on an ongoing basis. Thank you all very much for joining today.
Thank you very much.